We can start the recording on. Okay. Google recording we can start.
Mr. Amit, could you please go on mute? Hello, Mr. Amit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll start it. Start the. Okay. We'll start. Huh?
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. Good evening to one and all.
Good
On
evening.
behalf of the organizing units, Computer Society of India, Chennai chapter, IEEE Computer Society Madras chapter, ACM Chennai chapter, I extend a warm welcome to the speaker, Ms. Rama Bedarkar, Mr. Deepak Saxena and his team members from Wiley, India, who had facilitated this event, the participants who have joined this program using Google Meet and who are watching the YouTube streaming, and also to my colleagues from various organizing units. Our thanks to Wiley team for providing the first chapter of the book Agile Scrum, Improving Practices for Business Gain, authored by the speaker Ms. Rama, to all the registered participants. Software development lifecycle had undergone series of changes over a period of time. Peer programming, extreme programming, agile and scrum practices introduced over 10 years back have improving the process significantly and provided benefits of quality, cost-effective software products and improved the success rate of projects. Further, design patterns and DevOps, combining the development and operations people as a single team, have further improved the software development and benefited all. Today's event on Agile Scrum deployment for business gains will highlight the basic difference between the typical software development lifecycle based software development methodology and Agile Scrum. Explain the Scrum concepts and practices and elaborate how these practices can be deployed for the business advantages. It also will list the business gains achievable by deploying the Scrum Agile practices in the organization and deliberate on the challenges of Scrum deployment and how and which solutions can be deployed using these methodologies. This webinar will also help the Agile community to get their concepts clarified, to the practitioners how to handle the challenges, and to the consultants on what are the key areas which they cannot overlook while deploying the Scrum practices. With almost 20 plus years of experience of handling Scrum and agility, the speaker has defined her own Scrum based activities to ensure the software development is faster, better, and cheaper. This webinar also intends to cover her experience and help the participants to get the insights for deploying Scrum with practical tips. Now it is my pleasure to formally introduce the speaker. Ms. Rama Bedarkar has been a core software information technology professional with 30 plus years experience in multiple professional areas like project management, quality management, process management, program management, technology management, and people management, along with customer management in India as well as abroad in Singapore and USA. With 2 master's degrees, one in management and other one in computer science, Ms. Rama has started her career in IT training industry and has worked in various institutions, and then she moved to corporate organizations. She had worked in Singapore for 3.5 years, where she has been involved in training students from University of Oxford, Cambridge, and Austin. Passionate about software quality deployment and agility in software development using Scrum Framework, she has been working as an Agile coach and Scrum practitioner, mentoring and training consultant for the last 10 years. Each Scrum development and deployment exercise is unique depending on the type of teams, their strengths, weaknesses, and work environments for demonstrating the business value. Being a hands-on practitioner, she has clear understanding of the business challenges of the current VUCA world and human interaction issues. This has inspired her to write a book on Scrum published by Wiley India. Agile transformation is close to her heart, and she believes that it is inevitable to get transformed to agility in the current competitive world for progressively moving ahead to become faster, better, and cheaper in operations. With this brief welcome note and introduction, now let me request Ms. Rama to take over and enlighten us on Agile Scrum practices. Over to Ms. Rama.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mohan. Let me start with greetings to everybody, one and all. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the kind words, Mr. Mohan. And I would like to thank IEEE, CSI, and ACM for giving me this opportunity to present, my expertise, my passion, and my love for Scrum for everybody here. Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's visible, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been working, as said by Mr. Mohan, I've been working as a Scrum practicing trainer, coach, and mentor, and Agile transformation consultant for last 10 years. And just to give a brief introduction about my book, this is my book, Agile Scrum Improving Practices for Business Gains. Dr. Anand Deshpande from Persistent System has written a foreword for this particular book. And this book consists of a lot of audio clips, some question answers, and some case studies. Okay, I'll just brief you the contents about the book. The book has 3 sections. Section A talks about Scrum practices, the objectives, then operational guidelines for implementing the practices, for their effectiveness, and challenges, solutions, and how the business gains can be achieved. And this section B talks about comparing all the management aspects with waterfall mode and deploying the lightweight practices of Scrum, which covers project management, quality management, customer management, risk management, and even cost management. And the last section of my book is about case studies. And there are 7 theme-based cases. Each theme is a challenge which I faced in deploying the Scrum across different organizations. And each theme talks about how the challenge was faced and what were the issues behind these challenges and how the solutions were actually secured and then deployed. And finally, we achieved some of the success in different environments. And the takeaway of this is Scrum never fails. Whatever the advantages are, the advantages can be seen explicitly. And that is why it is said, even, the forefathers of Scrum, they say that the Scrum never fails. So it is good to deploy it. Okay, yeah. So this is my agenda. I'm going to talk about the introduction to Waterfall, that is SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. Typically SDLC is synonymously considered as a waterfall model, and then initially we all senior people, we started our career using waterfall as one of the major methodology in developing the software products or the software projects. And then I'm talking about the differences, and then how agility in the software development has come in, and then what are the advantages of agility. And then there are some agile development methodologies, but I'm not going to touch upon them. I'm going to just give introduction, and then we just directly go to Scrum, the framework. Now, about the framework, I'm going to talk about explicit practices which are covered under this Scrum framework, and then how the practices can be made effective, and then what are challenges, and how the solutions can be sorted. And then we will take at the end of the session the question answers. Now, this is a typical, you will see this in any Google search, the diagram. This is a waterfall model, synonymously called as software development lifecycle. We have requirements, these are business requirements. We do analysis, we do design, then we do coding, and then we do testing. So testing is done at the fag end of the product development. Now, in testing, the defects are uncovered, which may be related to analysis, which may be related to design, which may be related to code, which may be related to the business requirements also. So you go back to the square one to requirements gathering and refining the requirements to make those requirements suitable for the deployment of the product. This is the risk. At this stage, we have come all the way, and at this stage, the rework starts. And then it becomes very expensive. The deployment is always delayed. And that is why this waterfall model has its own limitations. Okay. So when we talk about the disadvantages of waterfall model, number one, requirements are never clear at the beginning when you write SRS or PRD. SRS is software requirement specification or product requirement document. It is never clear. The requirements, they elaborate, okay? They grow. And then because of this model, lots of rework is generated because requirements are not known at the initial stage. Then it becomes very time consuming to update the work products. The work products in the sense, the SRS document, the design document, the code, the test case repository, everything. And heavy documentation is very expensive. And traceability is a major challenge. You do not have the updated documents, so you cannot trace back your design to your requirements or your code to your requirements because the requirements are changing and the code is getting developed. So that disparity is a big risk. Nowadays, because of the complexity of the technology, different devices used in the market, it's impossible to see the actual result of a product. That means we don't get an opportunity to see the product running on the device. Okay. And then the end user involvement is totally missing. I remember one of my experience, we were working for initial product development for a local bank, a major bank, a private bank. And then we were developing a product for handling, typically the retail business. We spent almost 6 to 7 months with 12 people working for the product development. And at the end, the customer got involved. Customer says, we do not want this user interface. We do not want this. The requirements are different. We want a different way of handling this particular feature. All the requirements changed. And what happened? All the 7 months we spent with 12 resources boiled down to zero amount, all in vain, because end user involvement was missing at the early stage. But that was the model, Now in agile practices, the customer is involved, and that is the biggest advantage. And the business risk is very high in waterfall because ROI is not achieved, return on investment, because we do not have a product ready. The testing, I remember when testing is done, some 250 defects are logged. Where by the time you fix all the defects, your product is already gone in negatives. The schedule varies, the cost varies, everything is like, even the quality varies. Everything is actually unfavorable for the delivery and ROI achievement. And naturally, it is not suitable for the dynamic business environment. And hence this concept came that agility in the software development as one of the major concepts. Now, when we talk about agility, I'll just give you the brief Oxford Dictionary meaning. Agility means quick in response. We are responding very fast to changes in the requirements. We are responding very fast to the changes in the design, in the code. But the changes should be focused and flexible. It should be focused, and then it should be flexible also to accommodate, the business requirements. And it should be result-oriented work by collaboration. So collaboration is a very beautiful word, which gives, the crux of Scrum. Collaborate is to work together, and the Scrum meaning talks as a teamwork, team collaboration. Okay, and hence, agility came in the software development because of these challenges. Requirements are never clear. 40% defects due to gaps of interpretation. Then managing evolution and clarity of product features during the runtime by cross-team collaboration is not present. It is present in Agile, but not present in Waterfall. Customer involvement present in Agile for collaboration for enhanced quality. Working software is available to see on your device. After 2 to 4 weeks, that means a specific time frame. We call it as a sprint. And continuous testing in inspect and adapt way helps us to get the quality built in right at the beginning. Quality never gets built in by testing. Quality gets built in at the requirement level. If the requirements are quality requirements, if the design is quality design, if the code is quality code, then the quality gets built in. So this is the actual crux of developing a software. The advantages of this agility is it reduces the risk of project getting failed. We do not have schedule overrun, cost overrun, delays, rework, because we work in a focused way. You will see how we work in deploying the practices. And then the reduced project efforts and cost overrun is done. Rework is reduced. Time to market is reduced. It is faster. As I said earlier, the aim is faster, better, and cheaper. Today's world, which is so complicated in VUCA world, we cannot, miss the time target. And that is why time to market is very important in our business. And at the same time, better quality, better productivity because rework is less. Support cost is less because of the quality. Operational cost is reduced because of the focus. ROI is improved. Typically, we can even deliver after every sprint or a time frame to the customer, and customers' payment back helps us to reduce the holding cost of the product development. And ROI can start achieving right at the initial stage. Another very big advantage, self-organized cross-functional performing teams. Scrum talks about a lot of Scrum values. We will see going ahead. And these Scrum values are very important for better collaboration and team building. And because of all these things, naturally, customer satisfaction, employee well-being, and work-life balance, these are the side effects, or you can say the byproducts. And that is why agility has come into software industry in early 90s. Okay. When I talk about Scrum, as I said, the word Scrum indicates the teamwork. In rugby, the teamwork is called as Scrum. And what this teamwork is collaboration, working together. In the IT industry, nobody is expert of everything. If you talk about, I'm 30 years experience, but you ask me some new technology, I may not be exposed to that. So experience and exposure, these are the two different things. And that is why what we need is expertise from each stream, expertise from each different areas, each different domains. And this expertise, once bring in onto the table their experience, then we collaborate. And that is a teamwork. So Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schauber presented a paper in Austin in 1995, and then they designed a framework Now, what is a framework? Framework are the pillars. So pillars for the Scrum as a software, agile software development methodology have been laid. And there is flexibility within these pillars to move ahead based on your requirements, your product, your team, your organization culture, and then technology, etc. Okay, so the framework is fully designed with teamwork and collaboration in the mind. And today, more than 95% of the global software is being developed using Scrum. Okay, now I move to introduction to Scrum framework actually. Now the subsequent slides, I am going to go through the different framework pillars. I call them pillars because those are the practices. All the yellow text talks about the practices. So the pillars are number one, Scrum values. Now, when I talk about Scrum values, each of these pillars, I have subsequently detailed slides. So right now, at this point of time, I'm just going to elaborate at a high level what Scrum is. Typically we have values built in as human beings. Honesty, transparency, ownership, collaboration, to work as a team member. Okay. And then have guts to say, yes, I have failed, but then I have learned something from this failure. In today's environment, in today's management concept, there is nothing like failure. Failures are the learning lessons. Remember, everybody of us, unless you fail, you don't learn. So all these values are considered for empowering the team. Then the Scrum has specified different roles: product owner, who owns the product; Scrum master, who owns the practices; the team member. And they call it as a one team. There is nothing like a development team or a QA team. It's one team. And then the roles specify who does what and how using these practices. Then there are process and practices specified as ceremonies. Like if you talk about sprint plan, sprint review, sprint retrospective. Now, sprint is a term for the newcomers or juniors who may not be aware of this Scrum or Agile terminology. Sprint is a small time box, which you have to decide either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, which we consider for delivering our final objective. The sprint goals are delivered to the customer, to the end users. Okay. And then for this, all the ceremonies are processes and practices. Now, why they call it ceremony? Because multiple people come. We have birthday ceremony or maybe marriage celebration. People come together, they collaborate, they bring their expertise onto the table. And these practices are defined the form of ceremonies. We will see all the ceremonies going ahead. And team collaboration and communication through these ceremonies is the pillar. And customer collaboration is embedded in the practices. That means, as I said in my earlier example, customer used to get involved at a fag end of the delivery, at the user acceptance testing level, which is not at all advisable. Because for whom we are building the software product? For the customer. If the customer is not involved in our product development procedure, then what is going to be the outcome, right? And that is why Scrum has customer collaboration embedded. And then Scrum talks about frequent delivery of the software, which is sprint basis. Okay. And Scrum has a very strong, characteristic, that is continuous improvement by empirical way. What do you mean by empirical? Learn from your experience. There is a Japanese word called as shuhari, When martial art you learn, at the beginning you just learn the rules. It is shu. Shu is learning the basic rules. Ha means you deploy the rules and find out your own strengths and weaknesses while playing the martial art, and then even learning from your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, that is Ha stage. And now Re stage is the final stage when you define your own practices in martial art. You become so much master that your own practices can be defined. So that is the way continuously you improve based on the team, the strengths of the team, weaknesses of the team, the collaboration, the culture of the team, the organization culture. So there are so many parameters. And that is why in the initial introduction, Mr. Mohan said that she has developed her own practices. And that is how I would like to share that my own practices, which are developed because of the empirical way of deploying the Scrum practices in Shuhari way, these practices have been put into my book. And these practices you will never get in any of the book. These are just the learnings from my experience by deploying Scrum. So learn by experience based on team strengths and weaknesses. So these are some of the pillars. I'm going to talk about one pillar at one time. When I talk about Scrum values, I have already said, first thing is commitment. You are accountable for your work. What is accountability? You own the work. You should be focused. Don't do so many things, Just focus on what is the sprint contents. In this particular time frame of 2 weeks, the sprint we call, I have 5 features to be delivered for the product. Just focus on those 5. That is the focus. So we are delivering product feature by feature, And then those features are directly deployed at the customer side so that customer can also start using them and we get early feedback. Okay. Now, third thing is transparency and openness. This is a very big challenge. We need to be transparent about our work. We should be open in saying that, yes, we need help. I need help here. I need support here. And get the, expertise from the team who can help you by collaboration. There is no point in reinventing the wheel if the expertise is available in your team. That is what Scrum says. So that transparency and openness is very important. You should have courage to say, I have failed. I just say, this is working, this is not working. You should have courage to say, I have failed in this, I'm not able to do. So why I'm not able to do, then we find out the root causes and work on that in my next sprint. So continuously you are improving. Another value is respect. There is no hierarchy within the team. Remember, in the project management, typically we have project manager, then the project leads, then the team leads, the technical lead, the junior softwares, the junior testers. We do not, in Scrum, we do not say we have a hierarchy, we have a team. We respect each other. Everybody individual is expert in some or the other things. Okay. And then agile mindset. What is agile mindset? Quick to respond. There's a problem, find out the problem. The team will find out who knows the solution. The person who knows the solution will help the other person. Agility in driving a particular task to the result is very important. Don't work just for the sake of working. I have worked for 2 hours or 20 hours, and if I'm stuck, it doesn't make difference. Even if I work for 20 hours, my solution will not be deployed because I do not know the solution. So it's better to seek the help. Okay. Now, leadership with growing mindset is needed. Now, here the leaders should also be a part of the team. We are not leaders, but we are a part of the team and helping the team to drive the results. Okay. So not you and me are important, but the delivery is important. Okay. So this is what is the basic crux of the Scrum values: transparency, focus, courage, collaboration. Be accountable for your own work. And that is why they say that this is the base of the Scrum pillars. And on top of this base, the other pillars are resting. So we have iterative development. That means we use a sprint. Okay. It's a time box based delivery time, We do requirement analysis. I'm using the terms which have been used in the waterfall. Requirements analysis by And how do we do that in Scrum? By product backlog. So we write a product backlog, which is nothing but a one-liner features requirement. We'll see it later on. And one product backlog item, which is called as PBI, is then groomed. Now, grooming is a term which is very specific to Agile software development. That means we do analysis of each feature, okay? Then we do sprint planning. We plan the sprint. How many features to be delivered in 2 weeks? Who will do what? When the builds will be created? When the builds will be actually tested? Continuous testing will be done in inspect and adapt mode. Okay. Same way sprint execution goes on for monitoring different parameters. Then we review. Now, sprint review is here the customer or the product owner, they get involved. And sprint review is to review the product, not the processes or people. We review the product. These 5 features were supposed to be developed in this particular sprint. So are they ready? We show a demo. And then the customer will see the demo and give early feedback. Okay. Retrospective is for continuous improvement. I said show hurry way. Now here, we focus on improving the practices. In sprint review, we improve the product. In sprint retrospective, we improve the practices. Okay. So this is a diagram picked up from my book. So we have a product backlog. Product backlog, nothing but a list or a repository of all the product features. Okay. And this is owned by product owner. Okay. We prioritize them and then make a subset of it called as a sprint backlog. As I said, I gave example of 5 features. So this is a subset. Okay. We do sprint planning and a subset of this is clear. Sprint planning is a collaborative experience, collaborative exercise with all people together. Okay. So sprint backlog once finalized, we kick off the sprint. Okay. Now the sprint goes on in this circular way for the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever is the time frame of your sprint. Okay. Then there is one ceremony called as daily scrum. Here, whenever you see a bunch of people, this is a ceremony. So people gather at the beginning of the day, every day, and they will just see what are the problems. And the problem is not owned by an individual. The problem is owned by the whole team. If I'm a member, I have a problem. I put my problem in front in my daily scrum to the team. The person who is expert will help me immediately. So drive problems to solutions. And then we go ahead in product backlog grooming for the next sprint. And this is iterative development. The testing is also done here in this iteration. And then we potentially deliver. We do sprint retrospectives and sprint review after the delivery or during the delivery. So this is a just brief diagrammatic representation of the whole cycle. I'm going to focus now on each of this. Now, product backlog preparation. Now, there is a complete chapter number 4 dedicated for the product backlog management in my book, which talks about all the granular level intricacies of product backlog management. Now, this is nothing but a list of requirements and features as desired by the product owner. Owner is a product owner. The product backlog is owned by the PO. So product backlog item, that means each line PBI includes, it can be, functional requirements of the product, non-functional requirements, they can be defects, it can be technical work, it can be R&D work, it can be an epic. Epic is something which is a very sizably big feature, which takes more than a sprint to develop. Then this epic is divided into multiple different features. And spike is a technical work. Spike and technical work are synonymous. I'll give you an example of what is technical work. Creation of the test beds, creation of the test data. I want to do some R&D for using some new technology, specific activity, a new object, a new methodology, or whatever in the technology. I need to do some R&D. Now, this R&D is related to my product. And I need to do that for doing the coding that can also be specified as a spike. So all of this together will form a product backlog item. They are continuously prioritized. They are sized. Product backlogs are generally sized at a high level using t-shirt sizes. Something like XS, extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, extra large. Typically we have, this is just based on the gut feel that how much time frame will be needed. This is needed for the earlier, product management planning. And then allocate time explicitly in each sprint for updating this and update. Now this product backlog is a very dynamic document. It should be updated every sprint and it should be up to date. What are the business gains of handling product backlog? Now compared to SRS, software requirement specification document, there are sizes. I remember SRS used to be 120 pages long when we used to actually develop the products. Now, 120 pages writing at the beginning takes not less than 3 weeks. I used to take 3 weeks to write SRS. And once it is written, they were updated because the requirements were not there in SRS. You go and you walk on the project management path, the requirements get changed. And then SRS is never updated, design document is never updated, and then they become obsolete. And that is why, against the product backlog, this is continuously prioritized, sized. Okay. And this is just in time lightweight requirement management. Very less efforts because it's one liner. One liner can be divided, if it is epic, can be divided into 3 lines, 3 different user stories. But the efforts spent are very less. It's a very lightweight requirements management. And features-based detailing is done at a single product backlog item level. In SRS, a single feature detailing at a lowest implementation level or granular level was never done. It was very high level. And that is why requirements management is, now requirements analysis is something which is refining and grooming, and requirements management in Scrum, under Scrum Agile development methodology is very lightweight, very handy, and very less effort intensive. Okay. And how this analysis is done? First, the product backlog is refined. What do you mean by refining product backlog? You prioritize, you rewrite, you add new features, you delete unwanted, you edit the existing specific activity. That is all refining. And grooming is done, is detailed granular analysis of each feature, PBI. And product owner does it. Okay. So cleaning up, prioritizing, epic breaking, adding product performance parameter, adding technical and R&D activities, all these come under refining. And now grooming is scheduled within each sprint. So if I'm in the sprint starting from maybe 1st of April to 15th April, my first 2-week sprint, whatever I'm going to pick up in my next sprint as the sprint backlog, I'm going to do the grooming of those features in the current sprint. That means you should have the sprint backlog identified for at least next 2 sprints at early stage. So each feature is groomed. It's a grooming, PBI grooming is a session, it's a ceremony. We give 2 to 4 hours per sprint in this. And you should know now why grooming is conducted. The whole team is on the same page. Team should know what is the feature. Even the developers, testers, or whoever are involved. Architects also, team should prepare for the grooming effectiveness. Everybody, they should think before attending this grooming session, how this particular feature is going to be implemented. And grooming is done based on these 5 parameters. I have designed specific activities for product backlog item grooming where, we cover in the grooming session, understanding business requirement. What is a business need? Implementing the workflow. How do you implement that particular feature in the product? The workflow of that feature. What are the areas which are impacted? Basically, if a specific workflow is there are some areas which are impacted in the product. So where the impact is, impact analysis. Because we have to even do the testing for the impacted areas. Then we write acceptance criteria at the feature level. How are you going to accept this? Typically, if I give example of an ATM software, the authorization and authentication of your ATM card should be done, okay, is my feature. Now, what are the acceptance criteria? Are you able to log in using your credit card? Is your credit card identified? Is the credit card valid, verified by the software? Then you enter the PIN. Is the PIN verified? Is the PIN correct? And then you move ahead. So all these are nothing but the acceptance criteria. You put them at the feature level. This was never done in Waterfall. And then we have assumptions and dependencies and risks associated with each feature. There may be some dependencies. We are, using some tools, some APIs, which are third-party APIs. Then we have to integrate those APIs. So that is a dependency. If API is a buggy API, we will have to address that issue also, So all these things are discussed in grooming, which is nothing but analysis of each feature. Okay, and this is a very strong practice in Scrum. But because if the requirements are good, then only the product will be good. Now, what are the business gains here? Lightweight, just-in-time analysis, feature granularity for implementation, team involvement and collaboration, and different perspective at early stage. This is very important from technology perspective. And, we are just selecting few selected features of the product. In my current sprint, I have 5 features. In my next sprint, I have 4 features. Only those 4 features grooming will be done in this current sprint. When I start or kick off my second sprint, I will select the features which are actually identified at the sprint backlog for my third sprint. So the focus is only on the 4th sprint. The focus is only on smaller product development, which is very, very advantageous. Once the grooming is done, then we write the user stories. Now, what we do when I go to different organizations, we do grooming and then we identify who will work on these features. Somebody says, yes, I'll work. Then whoever the other developer, he will be writing user stories. Along with the developer, I associate some QA resource, quality assurance tester, testing resource. So developer and tester, they form a team. They both own that particular feature. And this is how we go ahead. And then when the user stories are written by the developers, the test cases are written by the tester. This is going in collaboration. And the user stories, test cases are written in current sprint for my next sprint for those 4 features. Okay. So basically, what is a user story? I think most of you must be aware. It's a very simple description of goals and objectives and business benefits with acceptance criteria. 1 sentence description of a feature deployment. In brief, who does, why it is done, what is done, how a requirement is clarified. Who, what, why, how is for any feature is clarified in grooming. User stories may be written for functional requirement, non-functional, security, performance, scalability related, for technical work, for APICs, for R&D activities, and then we write the acceptance criteria, explicitly specified to verify the value generated. And then the user story has got tasks. Now you are dividing the feature into stories and stories into tasks. So the hierarchy is you have epic divided into multiple features. One feature, if it's sizably big, divided into multiple user stories. Each story will have who will do what and all the tasks. As a user, I wish to ensure that the ATM, authentication and authorization is done so that the ATM card can be validated. So that is the business value. What is done is authorization, authentication. So this is very simple. And when the implementation, the workflow will go, and then the acceptance criteria. So writing user story is also a knack, but it is very lightweight, very easy to write, and even non-experienced people or a fresher can also write a good user story. Okay, and user stories sizing is done using story points. This is, based on the complexity and efforts. Now, what are the business gains? This is granular analysis with acceptance criteria. Now, acceptance criteria is written at the feature level is really, really advantageous. Okay. Now we come to sprint planning ceremony. Okay. Once the sprint backlog is decided, then we plan the goal of the sprint. Okay, what is needed by the customer. Then what to deliver to customer for the business need at the end of the sprint. And then each sprint will have same length. Now, why same length? Because we need to track or monitor capacity. We need to track, monitor velocity. Velocity is how many story points worth software you have delivered. Okay, so if I have 100 man hours as my capacity, then how many? I deliver maybe 30 story points in 100 man hours. That helps me in just judging my productivity. Okay, it sets the rhythm and pattern of activities within the sprint, and that is why the same time frame. Time frame and rhythm-based scheduling can be done. What are the business gains? Control short duration-based delivery in available time span and efforts. You know, in Waterfall, what we used to do, we have to do these features. Do we have resources? How many hours, man hours available with us? Do you take care of that? No. Here we have resources, we have man hours, and that is how then we calculate the capacity of our team. And then based on the capacity, we will identify what to be delivered. Okay, and that is the advantage. And then we have continuous testing within this. So effective control testing. Now, when we execute the sprint is kicked off on 1st of April, the sprint is kicked off. Every day you start meeting at the early in the morning when your day starts, daily stand-up, we call it, or a daily scrum. Objective is to track sprint execution. It's just 15-20 minutes meeting, you know. Agile says personal communication over documentation is very important. Yes, documentation can be misinterpreted, but personal communication can be clear, concise, and to the point. Okay. And transparency and handling by team, by collaboration is very important in sprint. So what do you track? You track user stories, how many completed, how many not. You track tasks, efforts, schedule, burn down, risks, impediments. Anywhere you're stuck up, get the solution and see the targets. So all these are tracked and take immediate action as we are agile. So when I conduct this daily stand-up meeting, I say, if I have a problem, it is not my problem, it is team's problem. And then I bring that problem onto the table in my daily scrum. So the business gains is focused action-based tracking and delivery never missed, and changes can be controlled. The whole team is on the same page. A small change is there, which is manageable to be taken within the sprint. You can take it up, but then the change should be known to everybody. So then the story will be altered. If suppose you want to make changes in the artifacts, what will change? One line of the product backlog and user story. Not like SRS, 120 pages, which is very lightweight. Now, when we talk about sprint review, I said sprint review is to inspect and adapt the product. Okay. Now, success is measured by working software. You know, agile methodology says the main principles. What is the success of Scrum? How much you have delivered? Is your software working? Are the 5 features which we identified in the current sprint, are they working well? Are they working end to end? The whole workflow is working correctly. That is the success. And then we give the demo to the end user in sprint review. Now this end user and customer gets involved. So even if there is a feedback, it is at a very early stage. Feedback can be taken if it is sizably big later on, but then it is essential for the customer to get involved to see what he is going to get as the final product. And then sprint can also be used for tracking your performance. These are measurement specific, you know, planned versus actual delivery of stories. I planned 5 stories, but deliver only 4. Then velocity achieved. My velocity for the capacity is 32 story points, or this sprint I have delivered only 28 story points. You know, planned versus actual velocity achieved. Then how many defects were injected. This helps us in improving in using shuhari, in case if something is wrong, you find out the root cause and work on that. So the business gains here is customer involvement in the sprint review. Then inspect product features before delivery, and there are no surprises to the customer. This is very important. Otherwise, customer is really surprised at the end if it is a waterfall and if customer involvement is zero. Another is sprint retrospective now. Now here we do inspect and adapt the processes and practices. Learn from sprint deployment experience. Now this is a ceremony which goes for 45 minutes to 1 hour. I conduct that in 45 minutes. What have you done well as a team? Continue doing that. And what we need to improve. We need to be very transparent. This works, this did not work. What needs improvement should be listed, and then that can be prioritized and taken as an action for my next sprint. That is the way we go ahead using Shuhari concept, Japanese concept of continuous improvement. And no two teams are alike. No two organizations are similar. No two organizations' culture is same. So that is why deploying Scrum in each organization is a unique experience. Okay. So this particular sprint retrospective is essential to maintain transparency and have courage to accept our shortcomings as a team. There is never a focus on an individual. The focus is on the teamwork, on the collaboration, strengths and weaknesses of the team members. Okay. Now, what are the business goals? Learn from experience with continuous improvement, improve practices to get consistent team performance, and transparency in accepting the failures. As I said, accepting failures also is very essential. Because we acknowledge that we have failed, but we have learned from this failure. Okay. Now, so we have seen, typically there are Scrum values. Then you do product backlog management, creation of sprint backlog, then grooming of the PBI, product backlog items, then writing the user stories, then kicking off the sprint. You kick off the sprint and start daily Scrum, track and monitor your sprint execution using daily Scrums. Whatever impediments or problems are there, resolve them there itself. Then finish the time box of your sprint and then deliver. And before that, conduct sprint review for the end users, product owners, and customers to review the working software. And then retrospective is for assessing our own performance as a team. So these are practices. Now, a simple, easier, just-in-time sprint planning and delivery achieves ROI. Customer involvement improves productivity. Quality, we have already seen that. These are the practices, best business gains. Reduces defects. Quality improved. Effective software testing. Practice enhanced collaboration and team empowerment and well-being. Why I'm saying team empowerment? Because slowly I have seen the teams, they are working together as one team. They learn from each other. Okay. They know who's good in what at the technology level. And since the strengths and weaknesses are known to each of them, they form very good, strong bonds and deliver well. Okay. So they are empowered. Juniors learn from the seniors, technologically, domain-wise, process-wise, everything, because all the practices are ceremonies. People come together, meet for some time, discuss, and then go back. Okay, now what are the challenges? It is very easy to understand, right? Very simple framework, very simple process, simple practices, simple ceremonies, but it is very challenging and difficult to deploy. Now, why challenges? Because of the mindset. The Scrum values, as I said, is the base of the Scrum. And mindset of agility is very important. People are not ready to change many times. If I am not transparent about my problems in my daily Scrum, I will have my problem sitting in my plate for a long time frame, and then I'm losing the time. We have to deliver in 2 weeks. 2 weeks is 10 working days. Out of which 7 days are only considered for code. So it is a short time frame based focused delivery. Okay. Another thing is customer involvement. This is also a challenge. Many times customer, they say, "Ki, we do not want to get involved in your meetings. We do not want to attend sprint review." But then in such cases, the risk also should be elaborated and informed to the customer, and customer should be convinced to participate in the product development process. Many times consistency of deployment is missing, continuous improvements are missing. The team has to decide that, see, practice makes a man perfect, right? Same way, you deploy first sprint, second sprint, third sprint. Only after 4 to 6 sprints, you learn all the basic rules, basic norms, just like you learn the rules of martial art using shoe concept. And once you learn the rule, then by continuous deployment, then you talk about the improvement. What are your strengths, weaknesses, and how are you going to tweak the practices to suit the environment? But this should be within the framework of the sprint or the Scrum framework. Okay, don't miss the practices. And this empirical way of learning is not understood by almost all organization team members. 10 years of my experience working as a consultant, I'll tell you it is very challenging to explain that we need to learn by our experience. I'll tell you very frankly, even our life is a learning process. When I say my day today is finished and I start my day tomorrow, what do I have learned in today's day? That becomes my property for the next day's, working in my life. So this is very, very important. Each day you add in your experience. It's not just the day spent, it's the learning. I always used to ask my son when he used to be small, 8 years old. He used to say, now I'm 9 years old. I said, what have you learned? What is the difference between 8 years and 9 years? What have you learned in one complete year, moving from 8th year to 9th year? So that retrospection continuously should be done within our mind. We should be self-retrospecting ourselves for the processes, practices, and learning. And this is empirical way. This is not understood by many people, and that is why Scrum fails. But when Scrum fails, they blame the practices. As a consultant, I would say the practices are very nicely designed, very thoughtfully, organized in such a way that there is a constant collaboration. Sprint planning, sprint retrospectives, sprint reviews, daily stand-ups, grooming, all these practices are beautifully designed. They should be deployed in a very nice way, and learning should be continuously done. Many times incorrect practices are deployed due to misunderstanding. People are not very clear about the practices. And these practices then do not add value. If the business value is not added, what's the use of being agile? What's the use of deploying Scrum? Scrum should be able to add business value in the organization's business or growth. Engineering practices should be clean before Scrum is deployed. Now, what are engineering practices? Typically, you should have a version control. You should have a tool for managing the project. Typical project management tool. You should have a test management tool. Your test cases must be there. Testing status must be there. Continuously, testing must be done, in a inspect and adapt mode, so that the build can be automatically created, deployed, and tested continuously. So all these are the engineering practices. So that's why, some DevOps practices should be embedded within the sprint execution. But even if these challenges are there, and even if the, practices are not effective, collaboration is not effective, teams still learn and their mindset gets changed for moving ahead in their Scrum deployment. And that is why Ken Schauber has written, Scrum never fails. It never fails. There are some or the other advantages. Okay.
Thank you very much, madam, for your detailed presentation on Scrum Agile deployment for business gains.
Yes.
So there are a few questions.
Are we on time? Yes, I think we are on time.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Madam.
Okay.
So there are
I'll
few
take
questions.
a few
I will read
questions.
it and you please give the answer.
Yeah.
How is Scrum different from DevOps and DevSecOps?
I didn't get your question completely. I could hear, there was a lag of voice.
How is Scrum different from DevOps and DevSecOps?
How Scrum is different from DevOps, right?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Yeah. To tell you very frankly, DevOps is a very wider umbrella. Okay. It's a real wider umbrella which consists of multiple different practices, automated build creation, automated build deployment, Docker usage, automated, testing also. So there are multiple engineering practices which are involved under the bigger umbrella. So Scrum forms as one of the small subset as a methodology for the software development. So it's just a subset within the DevOps umbrella. And this subset is nothing but the software product development methodology. So Scrum is a framework. So even if you use Scrum and you are not using the other practices like automated build creation, automated testing, or other things, the business gains will not be seen, explicitly, because those are very closely embedded together. Okay. Did you get?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next question is, why is Scrum? Can we use it for large projects?
Yes, it can be used. Yeah. Scrum can be used in large projects. And in fact, I would say the Scrum, whenever used in large project, it is advisable because the budgets are big, and then it is very difficult to use waterfall because otherwise the project may go in cost overrun or schedule overrun, efforts overrun. So the whole roadmap of the product development for a big project should be planned in such a way that you have the roadmap. Roadmap consists of quarterly or 6 monthly kind of a time frame for the product development. If you consider quarterly, it should be then divided into monthly small things. Those are the releases. And maybe a quarterly release with 6 sprints, something like that. So you break down, So breaking of the big project at the sprint level helps for a better focus, helps us to deliver quality, and helps us to, achieve ROI faster. So for a big project, you need little planning in preparing the product backlog. But then, the practices which are embedded, they help us in being focused on quality, focus on delivery, focus on continuous testing, and then deliver. So instead of delivering at the end a big product or big deliverables, it's good to deliver in small chunks. Okay, so yes, it is advisable.
Thank you, madam. The next question is, what are the future scopes for Agile Scrum development?
Frankly, I'm talking about today, more than 96 to 98% of the software development is done using Scrum. There are, as I said, multiple agile software development methodologies. I'll give example, extreme programming, then DSDL, there are a lot of them. Kanban is one, but Scrum is the most powerful and most popular. Now, why it is popular and powerful is because of the easiness of these practices. The practices are very simple to understand. And that is why Scrum is powerful. And at the same time, Scrum provides flexibility. As I said, it's a framework with boundaries. You have to use the different practices like sprint planning, retrospective, grooming, all those things. But then you can make within that framework all the work activities flexible. That flexibility is a very strong point. So I see the future is very, very strong. It is never ending. Only thing what I feel is actual right interpretation of the practices, right mindset, and a good leadership to handle the challenges. Because transparency, accountability is really very difficult to teach, right? What is accountability? Ownership of my own task. Everybody has to think that I should own this task and deliver a quality product. I should deliver in quality way. That accountability is very important. And if that is built in, I think Scrum will never fail. And Scrum has a very strong future.
Thank you, madam. The next question. How can we switch from Waterfall to Agile Scrum in between any of the project?
Yeah. Frankly, it is the mindset of the leaders that you have to ensure that because of the complexity of the business world today, the business world is very dynamic, very complex, lots of challenges. Competitors are really very, very close to you. And in all these odds, as an organization, you have to perform. Else you will be thrown out of the market, which is very clear, right? Kodak was thrown out of market. Never foreseen, the changes in the business environment, the technology changes. Here we really have the leadership which can perceive the advantages of deploying Scrum practices. And, the teams must be trained, and then you take small baby steps for deploying the Scrum and use a pilot project. Initially small project can be taken as a pilot. And once that project can be, the duration can be 2 to 3 months. And once you learn by deploying the Scrum, you can get a consultant, you can get a trainer, you can have your internal people also to train. But then take baby steps, small project, a pilot project, deploy Scrum practices, learn from the practices and continuously go on. So that is a typical roadmap, for deploying Scrum and moving from Waterfall to Agile Scrum.
Thank you,
Yeah,
madam.
it's challenging. Yeah, it's challenging, and you should get right consultant also. That is also a big challenge these days.
Thank you, madam. The next question is a general one. Is there any career growth as a project manager in future?
As a project manager using Scrum?
Generally, they ask, is there any career growth as a project manager in future?
Yes, definitely. But then the skills and then the characteristics of the project manager are changing. I'll tell you, today they call it as a techno manager. Project manager earlier used to be a non-technical person. Today, with the complexity of the technology, see, not a single enterprise or product is developed only on the laptop or on the cloud. It is all devices based. You have Android, and then you have iPhones, then you have iPads, and then you have cloud, then you have laptops, then you have different devices with different configuration, with different characteristics. Okay. Now, whenever project management is done and the complexity of the technology is so vast, a person with non-technical background, a person who cannot understand the technology, who cannot understand the business domain, who is not aware of what are their competitors for the same domain in the market, how the products actually run, all these things are developing as the side skills, not the main skills, but side by side, some of the skills which are essential in every project manager. A project manager cannot be a non-techie person. He must understand technology, he must understand domain, he must understand the business. So the future is very good. But the thing is, you really need to groom yourself to face the VUCA world. Volatile, violent, technologically, getting exposed to multiple different domains and all. You really need to groom yourself as a project manager to get those skills acquired. That is what is my experience.
Thank you, madam. The last question. Can you please explain with the help of real-time example about gain in business?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I'll take a very simple example. ROI achievement is fast. That is a business gain, right? Suppose I'm taking very simple example. Your software costs 100 rupees, which is divided into 5 different sprints. Your cost of holding, first sprint I deliver, my 20 rupees will be paid by the customer. So the holding cost becomes 100 minus 20, 80 rupees. I move on. And after my 5 sprints, I deliver all. So what is 5 sprints? 5 sprints is 5 into 2, that is 10 weeks. That is 2.5 months. I'm just considering a small example of a small product. In 2.5 months, you have delivered in 5 sprints a software which is worth 100 rupees. And after every sprint, you are achieving something on the top because your customer is paying for those features. Right? So ROI achievement starts at early stage. ROI achievement is faster. Okay, within the five sprints itself. Okay. Another thing is business gain. I'll give you example. Customer feedback. Whenever customers get the first sprint delivery, that is the first features group, they will use that and they will understand how to use the product, and they will help us to refine that product going ahead. That is a business gain. So your customers are getting involved, business gains. Your cost is also getting addressed, is a business gain. Faster to the market, business gain. Because the cost is directly proportional to the efforts you put in. If you put in lots of efforts and then cost is not recovered, when you are not gaining ROI, you are losing ROI. So these are small business gains. Business gains. Another example which is which cannot be counted. I can give example. If the team is empowered for deploying the practices, your team becomes powerful. What is the dollar value? Is there any money value? May not be. It's non-tangible business gain. Tangible is which can be measured, which can be put in the form of the numbers. Empowerment of your team members is a non-tangible, but then this empowered team can drive a long way in the organization. That is a business gain, right?
Thank you very much, madam. These are some of the questions. And
Okay.
thank you very much for
Thank you so much.
providing
Thank you so
detailed
much.
answers.
I would like to ask one question.
Answered all.
Yeah, one question, please. I just want to ask one question. See, in terms of project management, suppose the customer can, if he insists, agile development rather than the normal SDLC practices, will there be any major change in the project cost by the consultant?
Project cost by the consultant. That means project cost, how it can be calculated if the method deployment is changing, right? The development methodology, right?
Yeah, basically, the idea is that whether it is a Scrum-based development will be quoted expensive rather than the SDLC.
No way.
No, the idea is that Scrum development requires more, the team requires more people, right? Basically.
No. A team
Okay.
can be of a very small size. 7 to 8 people within a team also is good enough to start Scrum. You
Okay.
need not have a big team. If it is
Okay.
scaling agile, then only you can have a big team. The enterprise organization, they have scaled agile, you know. So that means multiple teams are there, divided based on the product features and all. And then the product is very big in size. Then in such cases, the teams are big. But generally, the teams,
So
you can
this
start
agile,
Scrum.
so agile methodology need not be expensive than the conventional. That's
Agile
what.
methodology is not expensive at all. That is what I'm telling. You know,
No.
quality is
No.
better,
See.
support cost is reduced, time to market is reduced, you know, ROI is faster, empowerment of the team is better. So all these are what? Business gains only. And cost-wise, if you say, it is always lower than the waterfall. Waterfall is really always, you know, 40 to 70% of the, you know, effort variance or cost variance is very common in waterfall model. But I'm not saying, I'm not criticizing waterfall. There are some technologies like embedded technologies and all, where waterfall and Scrum combination of the project management methodologies are used today.
Okay.
So some of them using waterfall for something and some activities are agile. So you can have a very good combination of both together, you know. But then it all depends on the type of the product.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
the team size, you know, varies, and also there is a compulsion to have a customer end user to be in the team, right? So basically,
End user in the team, it's not a compulsion. End users involvement at specific levels. Like maybe in
Okay.
sprint review, end user can get involved.
Okay.
Only in the sprint review. That can be once a sprint, or maybe once a month if the sprint is of 4 weeks. But then it helps, and that's why I said, you know, it's a big challenge. Customer involvement is a big challenge, and you cannot force customer to get involved. But if you convince customer, and if you are able to convince, the leadership is able to convince customer, it is really advantageous. Because customer becomes a part of our team, you know, and collaboration improves, and on a long-term basis, you have very good relations with customers.
Yeah, ultimately the maintenance also become easier for customer once they get it called.
Correct. Yes, absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody. Thank you IEEE, SEM.
Thank you, madam. Now it is time for the formal vote of thanks, and I invite Mr. Kamalakannan, Chairman of Computer Society of India, Chennai chapter, to propose the formal vote of thanks. Kamalakannan, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sakthivel. Thank you, Madam Rama. I think it has been wonderful. I think your depth and vastness of your experience in implementing large IT projects has been shining throughout your presentation. And you know, we noticed that this is not a theoretical course that you conducted today. I mean, you have been very, very practical in actually distinguishing Agile Scrum from the waterfall method that we have been following for a long time, you know, in history. So this was very good, and you also beautifully highlighted what the pillars of the Scrum framework are. Okay, and then you beautifully explained the values of the Scrum, which are very distinctly spelled out compared to any other method, where you talked about focus, commitment, openness, transparency, and respect for people. I think it all came through very nicely. And you concluded, again, not theoretical, again, real practical gains in terms of improved quality and improved productivity and lesser defects, because you are constantly tracking the progress along with the product owner, right?
Yes.
It's not like after 3 months you have a review meeting and find that, wow, we are completely, you know, way off the requirements. So there is a constant product backlog review. There is a constant retrospective that's happening. So you very nicely explained what the benefits of the Scrum, Agile Scrum could be. And finally, you also mentioned the challenges, right? For instance, if the product owner is not identified, like Mr. HR Mohan said, it's not going to work. So you need to have a very strong product owner who every time
Yes,
comes
yes,
out with the
yes,
requirements very clearly
Yeah.
during every agile meeting. And also you need to have a team who are open and transparent. I mean, here we are not here to pat each other and then congratulate each other, but we are
Right,
more
right.
worried about the product rather than me and you. I think
Correct. Yes.
this has been a wonderful session, Ms. Rama. Thank you very much for enunciating all the principles of Agile Scrum and how it can actually be deployed practically. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank Mr. Deepak Saxena for having worked with us, constantly coordinating between us and arranging this program. And of course, I know you just came back from the vacation, and even before you started your office work, I think you came to us for delivering the seminar. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. And I thank all the organizing units apart from Computer Society of India, ACM, and IEEE Computer Society. So, and also the organizers from both sides. So thank you so much. And thanks to all the participants who joined
Thank you
today,
so much.
in spite of
My
this being a
pleasure.
work day. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would recommend that everybody should go through the book and give the feedback. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
much, ma'am.
Thanks,
Thank
Mohan.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah. Yes. Recording close.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.